sensual, and sensational, Julie Newmar was a woman of many talents.
The Catwoman is not like the others.
A queen of the stage, the big screen, and of course TV, while also revolutionizing clothing.
This is the secret that made the Catwoman costume look so voluptuous.
But we'll always remember her as the very first actress to play Catwoman on Batman. So just why did she leave, and what did she think of the show? Also, what drove her famous catfight with her equally famous neighbor?
When I get out of jail, will you take me on a date?
Welcome, I am your host, Nostalgic Nick, here with some shocking answers that reveal Julie's real struggle with success, plus how her special needs son totally reshaped her worldview. So if you enjoyed today's video, toss a batarang to that like button, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new video. But now, without further ado, let's revisit the remarkable 9 lives of Julie Newmar. How old was Julie Newmar as Catwoman? Julie Newmar didn't get quite the start you'd expect. She actually started as a dancer. Even at a young age, Julie towered over everyone else, and at her tallest, she'd be just shy of 6 feet solid. And Julie had a very unique build that dance choreographers dreamed of. Did you know she did a dance with Fred Astaire in Bandwagon? She was even taller than him, but since she wore a long skirt, she did her waltz with her knees bent. Her very unique appearance and graceful movements made Newmar the perfect candidate for strong characters, and sure enough, she also played warrior types. At first, producers were eyeing Suzanne Plachette from The Birds, but as Newmar herself puts it, quote, "She's smart, sassy, but a mere 5'4". I was available with 6 inches to spare." So in 1966, producers approached Newmar to play the Caped Crusader's most felonious feline foe.
We'll have a short recess and discuss Batman and Robin's upcoming funeral.
There was one more hang-up though. Julie had never heard of this woman that's a cat. Fortunately, her brother was a huge fan of Batman and told her this wasn't something to pass on.
And it was I that said, "Oh, Julie, Batman, this is camp."
Pretty much everything about this was uncharted territory. From Julie's physique to this villainous on-screen character. Remember, she is the first to bring the comic book kitty to life.
Oh, I couldn't bring myself to do it, boys. Even though I don't care very much for that boy wonder.
So of course they made the special design choice of putting the utility belt around Julie's hips instead of her waist, cause that emphasizes her incredible hourglass figure. And on top of all that, Newmar was actually in her 30s when she joined the show, which isn't old in reality, but when Hollywood put such a short shelf life on its stars, this was a standout choice. But of course, this is the woman who danced around covered in gold paint for Serpent of the Nile, years before that famous Goldfinger scene. She's still upfront about what made her such an iconic Catwoman, saying, quote, "Well, the body fit the work, and the work fit the body." While Newmar would grin and bear this old mentality that producers and casting directors had, privately she was fed up with the system she worked in for very, very long. What happened between Julie Newmar and Jim Belushi? Some actors become a family because they perform together at the studio, and some become eternal rivals because they share a neighborhood. If you heard Newmar's name in the news unrelated to TV work, it's probably because of her feud with actor Jim Belushi. The two were neighbors for 20 years. Things really came to a head when Belushi came forward and threatened legal action against Julie. He said she'd been a menace to him for years. One big point of contention was the fence between them. Belushi wanted it taller for privacy, but Julie, a very avid gardener, said any taller would rob her plants of much-needed sun. Once the fence got taller, Julie insisted her huge, beautiful roses became wimpy. So began the years-long war, and in 2004 he filed a suit claiming, quote, "Newmar has engaged in a malicious and premeditated campaign to prevent and destroy Belushi's quiet peace." Newmar said Jim made so much noise she had to buy air traffic controllers earmuffs. Belushi accused her of defamation and destroying his fence, so he sued her for $4 million in damages. A third-party insider revealed they settled things in a friendly manner, ended the lawsuit, and looked forward to happier days as neighbors. If you remember Jim's sitcom According to Jim, the episode called The Grumpy Guy actually features Julie as a guest star and makes fun of their feud. So who was at fault in the Battle of Wills? When asked if it was true she'd egged his house, Julie said, quote, "Well, it left my hand, unfortunately. So maybe she could get pretty feisty when it came to her home. But her home ended up being a pretty important salvation, not just for her, but for her special needs son. And it was a haven as well as an extension of her very active schedule. The same one that would make her step away from her defining gig." What condition does Julie Newmar's son have? Back in 1977, Julie married a lawyer named John Holt Smith. Sadly, in their quest to have a child, the couple grieved for 3 miscarriages. And then when Julie was 48, they had a son, John Jules Smith. They soon found out their baby was deaf and had Down syndrome. 3 years later, the couple split up, and there came Julie ready to do the work for 2 parents. The way Julie saw it, John was a gift. Everything about him a blessing. She went into this with an empowering mindset that, quote, "Parents should never feel like they have an afflicted child." She also said he is an artist, and he even had an exhibit in a California gallery. She's always wanted John to be a child of the world, and whenever possible took him on globe-trotting adventures. Sadly, the duo suffered through some physical hurdles too. He developed scoliosis, and she's reported to have gotten Charcot-Marie tooth, a neurological condition that damages a person's balance and mobility. Mother and son would shrink together, but even then, Julie was ready to find happiness in what they had. She shared, quote, "After all that dancing, I don't walk very well anymore, and he doesn't walk very well." But she had the perfect hobby and getaway for them both, tending to a prized garden. There's even a prehistoric section for John to have fun in. Miss Newmar considers John the embodiment of everything great in her life, and she calls him a great teacher too, one who transformed her whole way of looking at life. Why did Eartha Kitt replace Julie Newmar as Catwoman? For the record, Julie was all in for Batman, as she was for everything else she did. She was the one who redesigned her costume to fit like a glove and show off her hips. She didn't have to do her own stunts and got tons of fan mail, mostly guys calling her their first crush, and women saying they loved seeing what it would be like to conquer the world.
Thanks for that information.
Julie would call her castmates some of the most supportive people in her world, and her job involved a script she called wonderful. In fact, she called show writer Stanley Ralph Ross her favorite person on set, and credits his work with making the character so successful. But then after 2 seasons of Batman, she vanished, replaced in the movie tie-in by Lee Merriweather, and in the show by Eartha Kitt. So if things were so picture perfect, why leave? Well, it wasn't all fun and games, especially for Julie. That jumpsuit was made of lurex, which didn't have a lot of give. Her iconic gold claws were made of metal she had to wear over her fingers, and as Julie tells it, they hurt. They hurt a lot. When asked in an interview if her fingers ever bled because of that, Julie said, quote, "In those days, who cared? When you're performing, pain never matters." That doesn't mean she is or ever was a fan of suffering for art, or the idea that artists were expected to suffer quietly. When the interviewer mused how pain is beauty, she was quick to fire back, quote, "No, it isn't." But she kept a very full schedule between all her hobbies, investments, and jobs. So if Batman was one less thing off her plate, I mean, who can really blame her? Julie Newmar, lightning in a bottle in a jumpsuit, bursting with talent and energy whichever way she went, even still in her 90s today. Sadly, the master tapes from her very first sitcom, My Living Doll, were destroyed in a fire. But the vivacious Julie has graced our screens plenty more times since. So tell us, what was your favorite performance of Julie Newmar?
It's been fun,
But all good things must come to an end, and the goodest ending I can think of is yours.
Get in the comments and tell us all things Julie Newmar and all things Batman and Catwoman. If you enjoyed our deep dive today, please give this video a thumbs up, it really helps. And subscribe to the channel so you never miss a new deep dive. While you're down there in the comments, tell us who we should cover next. But most of all, from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you for watching.